Today we're going to be taking a look at Marvel's What If Wolverine battled Conan the Barbarian. Already, this book is, like, the cover is so much fun. The colors, the poses, and who better than to fight Wolverine than Conan? Like, two of the most masculine figures in comic book history, like Wolverine and Conan, these two just berserker, barbarian, monstrous dudes. Super fun, and it's a great cover, so automatically it caught my eye, and I said, well, this seems kind of interesting. Let's give it a shot. So this book was, it is actually written and drawn by two gentlemen that I have never actually have heard of before. I think I've seen their names on a few other projects, but they're new to me in this regard. But it's Glenn Herdling is our writer for today, and Gary Kwapisz is our penciler, with inks by Akin and Brian Garvey. So kind of interesting. But both of these guys do a great job. I will say the story gets a little convoluted at times. There were a couple questions that I had where I was like, why not just do this instead? Or I think it would be better if this happened. But without me, just kind of going off and rambling, let's actually take a look into this book right now. So for context here, well, here's our actual book, but for context, I wanted to show you guys issue 137 of the Uncanny X-Men. If you guys know that issue, this is part of the Dark Phoenix Saga, and specifically this scene where the X-Men are transported into Lilandra's kingdom and onto this, I believe it's like some blue moon that she transfers them to. And you see the X-Men kind of in peril here with Jean, because Lilandra wants to kill Jean Grey, because while Jean was part of the Dark Phoenix, she actually destroyed a planet with over 5 billion lives there. And so Lilandra, who is our individual here, she is under the belief that Jean Grey needs to atone for her sins and should be killed. But the X-Men want to fight for Jean now that she is not under the influence of the Dark Phoenix. But later in the issue, as the X-Men are fighting for Jean's life, Wolverine takes a turn for the worst, and he gets kind of thrown and thrust into this dome-like building where he says, "Can't keep my balance, holy," and then flies off into this weird kind of distal land. And we see him then in the Watcher's lair. And so in this issue, Wolverine gets transferred into this like time-space continuum where the Watcher shows Wolverine all these different places, like the prehistoric times and this like apocalyptic ending world view of time, space. And then he pops him back out and he goes, "Return here at your own risk, Wolverine." So Wolverine, during this period of time, it's literally only one page and maybe one panel. During this time, this is actually where this issue takes place. Because while Wolverine gets transferred by the Watcher to this prehistoric era, that's where we actually meet him with Conan in this issue of What If. So if you guys didn't know, What If was actually a series published by Marvel where basically all your favorite characters get put into these scenarios like, what if the Silver Surfer had gained the Infinity Gauntlet instead of Thanos. You guys are more probably in tune with the show or know more about the show than the actual comic, because they did, I believe it was like a Disney Plus show that was animated, and it was What If, and they had all these different scenarios. But yeah, What If kind of plays with the idea of what if these characters did something out of continuity or out of context or otherworldly. And so essentially the Watcher gets put into these scenarios where he kind of changes and alters time and reality a bit to see what fun we could have. And so that's why this series is so fun. There are stakes to these issues, like there are, dangers and there are issues and that could happen throughout the issue. But in regards to actual like life-altering circumstances where it changes or alters the time frame for the normal storyline, it normally tends to not do that because What If is like a contained story. And like I said, in context to issue 137 from the X-Men, the Uncanny X-Men, it really only happens in like this panel here. This entire issue is pretty much shown in that. So I'm going to get this out of the way for us so we can just take a look specifically at this issue. But this was published as part of What If's Volume 2, which was published in 1990. And basically, like I said, we see that the X-Men are on Lilandra's moon, where the X-Men are fighting for Jean Grey's life. So I won't kind of go too much into that portion because we kind of already got some backstory from the previous issue from X-Men 137. But when Wolverine gets transferred into that prehistoric era, we now see him here kind of fighting off some dinosaurs, which is pretty rad. Right off the bat, cool pose. Love it. It's the superhero pose, right? It's him like landing in that like super crazy heroic way where you got like one knee down and then you like lift your head up, and it's very thematic, it's very epic, and I love that is how he lands here in this like prehistoric era. But yeah, it says, what if Wolverine had lived during the age of Conan the Barbarian? Pretty rad. And like I said, some interesting new writers and illustrators, which I appreciate. But I do love the pose. I also love the figure of Wolverine. He's got like the stocky, muscle-bound figure. Already enjoying it. And within like seconds of him landing in this prehistoric era, he's gotten his mask kind of ripped in half. I always really liked that like half masked portion profile of Wolverine. I always thought that looked cool. So he basically takes out this dinosaur who's trying to attack this woman, and by doing so, he's greeted by the gentleman who was, who's, you know, I think they look like they're on part of this kind of caravan here. And so Wolverine kills this dinosaur. The gentleman says, "Thank you. You should look for refuge, and we are looking for warriors like you in our town over here." But because their language is skewed, Wolverine doesn't understand what he's saying, so he follows his path anyway and just says, "All right, I'll head into this village that you're talking about." Unbeknownst to him, however, he doesn't know that Conan would be waiting for him in this village, as well as another guest that we will see here shortly. Conan, while in a bar, is visited by this wizard or this warlock. His name is Zukala, and Zukala asks for the head of Caranthes, which is another wizard or another warlock. And in return, what he would do for Conan is to restore the life of his love, Beelit, from Beelit and Valeria. So if you know the kind of Robert E. Howard Conan adventures, Beelit and Valeria were kind of these swashbuckling pirate females that were on the seven seas. And so Zukala says, "Bring me the head of Caranthes, and you will have your beloved back. I will bring her back to life for you." This is where I kind of had an issue with later in the comic, and I'll talk to you guys about that in just a little bit. And then Wolverine is found kind of stumbling around in the city. He finds someone else's clothes to kind of mix in so that he's not in his yellow and blue suit. That might he might stick out a bit. And so when he does, he meets Red Sonja. This is our other character that we were introduced in the book, which is super cool. I didn't know that she was going to be in here. But we get some thickness in this panel. Boys, we got some booty. We got some booty and thickness from Red Sonja. I mean, what comic couldn't use a little bit of booty and thickness from our beloved Red Sonja? So the cool thing about this, though, is that because Wolverine is made of adamantium, Red Sonja really doesn't stand a chance here, and so she tries to swing at him with her sword, and it easily breaks within just a swipe, and so Wolverine knocks her down. But he's also kind of confused because at first Wolverine believes that this is Jean Grey, that the red-haired, beautiful Red Sonja has the likeness of Jean, which is understandable. So finally, Wolverine bests her in battle, and she says, you know, whatever man is able to best me in battle, in hand-to-hand combat or whatever, I allow him to, as a prize, as a sort of consolation, I allow him to bed me, essentially. And Wolverine goes, she offered herself to me like some sort of prize. Sorry, darling, that ain't my style. So, I'm interested to see what you guys think. Is that do you guys think that Wolverine would do something like that? Or do you feel like Wolverine would absolutely say, you know what, darling, no, let's get this thing done. Let's go into one of these villages here, one of these little townhouses, and get it done. I don't know, kind of interesting. But so Red Sonja, being kind of hurt by him rejecting her, she goes after him to follow where he's going in this bar. But then they actually begin to talk and try to learn each other's language and learn each other's names, to where Red Sonja sees Conan. And Conan is going through town looking for the head of Caranthes, who is the other wizard, the other warlock that he has to kill for his beloved. This is kind of cool, though. Did you guys ever play this Uncanny X-Men game on the NES? Nintendo Entertainment System. X-Men fans now, the fantastic gang of heroes, Wolverine, Cyclops, Nightcrawler, Storm, Colossus, Iceman, are at your command. I always love these old ads for like video games and stuff. But yeah, did you guys ever play this one? I remember playing the arcade one, the cool X-Men scroller where you'd go across the screen. I love that one, but I don't think I ever played this one. So anyway, Conan goes into the kind of sacred hearth of this sorcerer, and before he can kill him, Red Sonja says, Conan, before you do anything, I understand that you're trying to take this man's life for your beloved, but I am his protector, because Red Sonja is actually working for Caranthes as his kind of like bodyguard. So Conan has to try and decipher whether he needs to go through her or if he can just kill Caranthes, because Red Sonja and him have fought before. They're friends at this point, but Wolverine is not about that life. So Wolverine tries to fight Conan, and by doing so, boom, we get this page right here. I think Conan is drawn really well. I also like that Conan is drawn as like this massive presence. Wolverine is much shorter in stature, much smaller of a man, still has a large frame, but I like how Conan is kind of this domineering, massive presence. Because when you think of Conan, you think of like Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? So I like how in all the panels, Conan is drawn to be much, much larger than Wolverine. So the sorcerer kind of knocks Red Sonja out with this weird kind of spell, to which she is now unconscious, and Wolverine gets really upset by that and thinks that it's Conan's fault that is what happened to her. So like I said, this is kind of where we get a bit convoluted, because it's like Wolverine is trying to protect Red Sonja, but Red Sonja is trying to protect the sorcerer, but Conan's trying to kill the sorcerer, but the sorcerer is trying to kill Red Sonja. It's like, it's too many characters to just kind of... It's not, well, I guess I shouldn't say it's too many characters, but it's just a lot going on. The other interesting thing here is that because Wolverine's adamantium claws breaks right through Conan's sword here, Conan has to grab one of the sorcerer's swords that is like magically blessed so that it can't break against Wolverine's adamantium. So they begin to fight, and as Wolverine gets a good swipe over on Conan, Conan then comes crashing down with his sword against Wolverine's neck, almost decapitating him, but with the adamantium, the sword cannot pierce through, so it actually breaks against the adamantium, and Wolverine is left there to bleed out on the floor, to which Conan takes Red Sonja and the sorcerer captive to bring him to the other sorcerer as a means of sacrifice. But because Wolverine has been knocked out for so long and bleeding on the ground, when he comes to, when his healing factor finally comes into play, he has this berserker animalistic rage, and this is what I thought was really cool. Lack of oxygen has brought to fore Wolverine's suppressed animal nature, his savage berserker rage. And that's just a cool, really intense shot of Wolverine, like kind of howling at the moon and engaging that berserker rage. So here we see Conan bringing his two individuals that he's held captive to Zukala's kind of lair. And he puts Red Sonja down and says, I'm going to just leave so that you can take care of this other wizard, this other warlock. But while you do that, I want you to bring back Belit for me, my beloved. And the sorcerer kind of double crosses him, and he says, yeah, well, good luck with that, because if you truly want her back, you're going to have to give me the sorcerer and Red Sonja. So this is, like I said, this is kind of where I had an issue with it, because how would Conan have known to bring Red Sonja? And then if, what's the purpose for the sorcerer to ask for Red Sonja's life? He already has the other wizard, so why wouldn't he just kill that wizard and then grant Conan his wish, his beloved, girlfriend or whatever? Why does he need Red Sonja? He says that, if you want the woman, you must provide me the body of a woman. So then, conveniently, Red Sonja is just kind of there because Conan took her. So, like I said, that's kind of where I was like, all right. It's a what-if story. I'll follow along. I'll play along. So it is unfortunate, though, because then Conan has to say, all right, well, in order to get my beloved girlfriend back, I have to sacrifice Red Sonja. But Wolverine is having none of that, because Wolverine senses him. He sniffs out Conan's trail because he has that amazing mutant power of being able to sniff out his enemies. So he finds Conan, and he wants to now kill him with this berserker rage, which is so rad. You can see him roaring at Conan here. And he's got nothing on. He's just got a little loincloth at this point. So really now it's just two muscular, shirtless, bound dudes fighting for essentially Red Sonja, just taking cracks at each other. So a lot of really fun action. And Conan still has his magic sword to be able to fight against Wolverine. But the sorcerer sees that Wolverine is not from this dimension, and that the Watcher is actually the one who brought Wolverine into this era. And so the sorcerer realizes that to get Wolverine out of this trance, this berserker rage, and to send him packing and to leave, he has to recall his name of Wolverine. It's where we see here. And he says, remember who your friends are. Remember the X-Men. Remember Jean. Remember all these people. Go to them. Go find them. So Wolverine has to then start to, consider, do I go and be back with my friends, or do I protect this new woman who I've met and who, I've started to fall for, from this raging Conan guy who I have no idea who he is. So Wolverine actually cuts off the hand of Conan in this panel here. I forgot that. So Conan has to cauterize the wound. And at this point, Conan realizes, you know what? It's not worth sacrificing Red Sonja. He sees through the wizard's, power. He sees through his whole scheme. And he says, you know what? I'm out of here, and I'm taking my friend Red Sonja with me. But before he can leave, the sorcerer produces a demon. And this was actually it says Conan first encountered Jagtanoga in Conan the Barbarian, issue number 5. So if you're a huge Conan fan, this is going to be a definite deep cut to remember this kind of demon. And so seeing Conan's heroism, Wolverine goes, you know what? Instead of going back to the X-Men, instead of going back to that moon, before I leave, I'm going to try and save these two. I'm going to try and save Conan and Red Sonja from this crazy demon, because at this point, this is the most important thing to me right now, to try and save these two individuals, and then I can go back to my friends and family. Wolverine decides to take out the sorcerer who's conjured this demon, but in doing so, Conan is the one who gets thrust through the portal to where the X-Men are. So then Wolverine leaves with Red Sonja as the whole place collapses, and later we see that Red Sonja and Wolverine actually begin a relationship, and then later they get married, and it says in the Numidian Chronicles, Know ye, O Prince, that in the years following the passage of Conan the Cimmerian, there emerged Logan the Wolverine, wild-haired, bestial-eyed outlaw, a philosopher, a noble, a savage. He trod the jeweled thrones of the earth with his bride Red Sonja, warrior woman out of majestic Hyrcania unto the shadowed mists of legendary. So we see them here riding out into the sunset. I like the height difference between Red Sonja and Wolverine. At least they got that right. You know, that's keeping consistent. And then we see back in, it says, here's the epilogue where Conan has gone through the portal back into the X-Men era on this like moon with Lilandra and everything in the Dark Phoenix. And Conan just starts killing people left and right. He just starts murking Skrulls and Kree and all this stuff. And before he can actually do anything in terms of the Phoenix, Jean Grey turns into the full Dark Phoenix, and as the full fury of the Phoenix is unleashed upon an unsuspecting populace, one final interjection reflects the sentiment of an entire universe. Crom, which is Conan's god, essentially. So like I said, that ending kind of got a bit convoluted there at the end, where you have like the two wizards and then you have like a demon, but then Conan is like, do I save Red Sonja or do I kill her for my girlfriend? Or, you know, what is Wolverine's part in all of this? The thing that I didn't really understand though is like, or one thing that I would have changed is if Wolverine went back to the X-Men and things stayed as normal. I think if Conan were to stay in his world or his time period and Wolverine were to have gone back to his, that would have probably been a better ending. And then maybe Red Sonja recalls that one time where she met Logan, you know, the Wolverine, and she writes him down in the scriptures, and Conan remembers that, you know, Wolverine was one of the toughest men he had ever fought. And like that was something that he held through the years as he fought all these other beings. That would have been a better ending for me personally. I didn't like seeing the two of them actually stay in each other's timeline. That was just like not the greatest payoff that I guess I wanted. Plus, it would have been fun to have, you know, if you read the Uncanny X-Men issue 137 and you see that panel, you can kind of recall, oh man, that was that time that Wolverine went and fought Conan, but he came back to the real universe. You know, he came back to the X-Men universe that we know. That to me would have made more sense, and it would have been more fun to have just like one contained little story in that panel. But like I said, that's just me, my personal, you know, thoughts on this. What did you guys think? Honestly, it's a fantastic cover, fantastic art, but for me, the story fell a little flat at times with a couple convoluted plot points and character plots and whatnot. So, but I would love to hear what you guys think down in the comments below. What other books would you guys like me to do reviews on? Is there anything modern or more Silver Bronze Age that you guys would like me to take a look at? But yeah, thank you guys as always for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.